Clara Montgomery's hand trembled as she crumpled the telegram into a fist. 6 weeks, she whispered. I crossed 2,000 miles for 6 weeks of lies. The station clerk wouldn't meet her eyes. Behind her, a man in a black coat watched her like he'd known this would happen. Like he'd made it happen. In that summer heat of 1882, a Philadelphia nurse with no money, no name worth keeping, and nowhere left to run, realized one cold truth. The man who destroyed her life back east had followed her west. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. I want to see how far Clara's story has traveled. Now, Cheyenne, Wyoming territory. July of 1882. The telegram lay crumpled in Clara's fist, but the words wouldn't crumple. They had teeth. Miss Montgomery, after due consideration of certain communications received from sources in Philadelphia, I find myself unable to proceed with our arrangement. Refund forwarded. Do not seek further correspondence. H. Whitfield. Ma'am. The clerk cleared his throat. You're blocking the window. Clara didn't move. There has been a mistake. No mistake. He paid for that ticket 6 weeks ago. He wrote me letters. He said, Ma'am? The clerk tapped a pencil on the counter. I just told you the same thing twice. Mr. Whitfield sent a wire. Mr. Whitfield sent a refund. Mr. Whitfield said real plain he ain't coming. Now I got folks behind you needing service. Clara turned. 3 of them. A woman in green. A bearded freighter. And a man in a black wool coat too heavy for July, his eyes already on her like he'd been waiting half an hour for her to face him. Excuse me, she said. The woman in green swept past without a glance. The freighter tipped his hat at the floor. The man in the black coat did not move. Montgomery, he said softly. Pretty name. Philadelphia, isn't it? Clara's spine went straight. I beg your pardon. Beg nothing. I asked a question. Philadelphia. My name is my own concern, sir. Course it is. The man smiled. He had a thin mouth and very white teeth. Course it is, Miss Montgomery. Course it is. She walked out into the sun before he could say another word. The platform burned through the soles of her boots. Her wool dress clung to her ribs. Her gloves were soaked through. She set the trunk down at her feet and stared at it because she couldn't yet bear to look up at the town that had refused her. 6 weeks, she thought. He waited 6 weeks to write me. He waited until I was already on the train. A boy in a too-big hat banged past her with a mailbag. A stagecoach team stamped on the far side of the depot. The fare to Laramie was $4.50. She had $3.40. And Mr. Whitfield, whoever he had truly been, was not waiting in Laramie anyway. Miss, a woman in a calico apron, had stopped at the corner of the platform with a basket on her hip. You all right, miss? You're awful pale. I am fine. You don't look fine. You look like you've been hit. Where you headed? I was supposed to be married this evening. The woman's face changed. Oh, honey. Please don't. Clara lifted her chin. Please, is there a boarding house in town? Mrs. Kettering's on Eddy Street. Tell her Annie sent you. She could give you a rate. Thank you, Annie. Honey, listen. The woman lowered her voice. Cheyenne ain't kind to a woman alone. You hear, don't tarry on the streets after sundown. Don't take work nobody else'll take. And don't tell folks too much. I never tell folks anything. That'll do then. Mrs. Kettering took one look at her and said, No. I haven't asked you anything yet. You're about to ask if I have a room. The answer is no. You have a sign on the door that says vacancy. Sign's wrong. Madam? It's Mrs. Mrs. Kettering folded her arms across her bosom. She was a thick woman with a small mouth. I don't take in jilted brides. It's bad for business. Clara's breath caught. How did you... It's a small-town miss. The man at the depot said your name aloud, and there was a fellow at my breakfast table this very morning who knew that name already. So no, I do not have a room. I will not have a room. I would advise you to try the Methodist Church before sundown, and if they will not take you, the marshal might give you a cot in the back of the jail. That is a kindness, miss. That is the only one I have for you. Who was the man at your breakfast table? What? Who knew my name? Tall fellow, black coat, lawyer-looking. Said he was here on business out of Philadelphia. Clara felt the floor of Mrs. Kettering's parlor tilt very slightly under her boots. Did he give a name? Beaumont. She had to put a hand against the doorframe. Silas Beaumont. That sounds about right. What did he tell you about me? Mrs. Kettering's small mouth got smaller. He said you were not the woman you claimed to be. He said you had lied to a good Christian gentleman about your character. He said any decent householder in this town would do well to shut her door to you. And miss, that is exactly what I am doing now. The door shut. The latch clicked. Clara stood on the stoop with the sun directly overhead and counted her breath in. 1, 2, 3. He had followed her. He had followed her 2,000 miles. He had gotten here first. A horse went by in the street. A child laughed somewhere. A piano started up in a saloon 2 doors down, slow and sour. She picked up her trunk and walked. The Methodist Church had a notice nailed to the door, Reverend in Laramie, until Sabbath. The general store would not let her trade her gloves for a meal. The hotel asked for a week's board up front and would not hold her trunk against credit. The dressmaker glanced up, glanced down, and said, "I'm sorry, miss, I am not hiring," before Clara had finished her sentence. The bakery turned its sign while she was still on the boardwalk. The seamstress shut the curtain in her face. A woman crossing the street with 2 small children pulled the children to the far side of her skirts when Clara walked past, as if scandal were something a child could catch off the air. By 3 in the afternoon, she had walked the length of Cheyenne twice. Her arms had gone numb at the shoulder. Her tongue was thick. She was at the western edge of town now, where the boardwalk gave out, and the road turned to dust, and the dust turned to open prairie. She set her trunk down because her arms had quit. She sat on it because her knees had quit. The sun was directly behind her, and her shadow stretched thin and far across the road, like it belonged to somebody else. Somebody she used to be. Somebody who had still believed that a woman could begin again. A man on a porch across the way was watching her. "Lookin' for something, miss?" "No, thank you." "Lookin' like you lookin' for something." "I am quite all right." He laughed once low and spat into the dust. "Suit yourself, then." His hand drifted to his belt. She watched the hand drift, and she did not look away from it, because she had nursed soldiers in Philadelphia, and she knew exactly what a hand drifting to a belt meant. "Ma'am." She did not look up. "Ma'am, you all right?" "Please leave me alone." "Can't rightly do that." "I have nothing for you to take, sir." A pause. Then a quiet, careful voice that was not the voice from the porch. "Ma'am, I ain't here to take. Ma'am, look up at me now." She looked up. He was on horseback, a big, sorrel mare. He had a brown hat with the brim curled at the edges, and a face weathered by something more patient than weather. Not young, not old, a dust-streaked blue shirt, a kerchief tied at the throat, a rifle scabbard on his saddle empty. "Name's Jack Thornton," he said. "I run a place east of here, the Bar T." "Mr. Thornton?" "Just Jack, ma'am." "Mr. Thornton, I am quite well, and I am not in need of any assistance. Ma'am, with respect, you are sitting on a trunk in the dust at the end of a town with no water and no parasol, and the sun is fixing to pull the breath right out of you. I have seen men twice your size go down with less. I cannot ride past you. So I will ask you again, ma'am. Are you all right? I cannot pay you for any kindness, Mr. Thornton. I have nothing. I did not ask for pay. Then what do you want?" He took his hat off. He held it against his thigh. "Ma'am, what I want is to ride home tonight without a dead lady on my conscience. That is what I want." Clara did not answer. "There is a boarding house," he said. "I have been to the boarding house." "There is the Methodist." "I have been to the Methodist." "There is." "Mr. Thornton." Her voice came out harder than she meant it to. I have been to every door in this town that a respectable woman is permitted to knock upon. The doors are closed to me. I have been informed that I am not respectable. So please, go home. Ride past. He was quiet for a long moment. Ma'am, he said finally, who told you that? Pardon? Who told you you ain't respectable? A man from Philadelphia. He from this town. No. He got authority in this town. Apparently he has authority everywhere. Jack Thornton reseated his hat. Ma'am, with respect, he don't have authority on the bar T. Mr. Thornton. Jack. Jack. She forced the word out. You don't know me. That's a fact. You don't know what I have done. That's a fact too. You haven't asked. Ma'am, I am asking now. Clara looked up at him and discovered that she could not get any words out of her mouth. The piano in the saloon had stopped. A wind had come up off the prairie and was lifting the dust in long brown veils. The man on the porch across the way was still watching her, and his hand was still resting on something at his belt. Ma'am, Jack said quietly. Whenever you are ready. My name is Clara Montgomery. I trained as a nurse at the Pennsylvania hospital. I worked 2 years on the surgical ward. There was an incident. A patient died. A good one. A patient who should have lived. Everyone in that hospital agreed in the first hour that it was the surgeon's mistake, until the surgeon's father went before the board. And then by supper time, everyone had agreed that it was mine. Was it? No, sir, it was not. All right. That is all you have to say. Ma'am, I am a rancher. I ain't a judge. You are not concerned that I am concerned. He said that the man across the street has been fingering a knife under his coat for the last 4 minutes. I am concerned that the sun is going to drop in 2 hours, and I would like to be 5 miles east of here when it does. I am concerned with practical things, Miss Montgomery. Now, will you let me put your trunk on my pack horse, or will you not? She opened her mouth. She closed it. She nodded. He dismounted. He did not look at the man on the porch, but Clara saw him angle his shoulder so the rifle scabbard was visible from that direction. He lifted her trunk like it was a sack of feed and tied it down on a small dun pack horse she had not even noticed standing behind the mare. Can you ride, ma'am? I can. Astride or side? Astride. Suit yourself. The mare is gentle. Up you go. He laced his fingers and offered them. She put her boot into his hands, and he lifted her into the saddle clean. Mr. Thornton. Jack? Jack. What if he comes after us? Who? The man from Philadelphia. He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes were a flat, steady blue and very tired. Ma'am, he said. If a man from Philadelphia rides onto my land with a notion of dragging you off it, that is a conversation he will have with me. And it will be a short one. Now sit easy. We got a ride. He swung up onto a second horse he led from behind the dun and turned them all east away from Cheyenne into the open country. Clara did not look back. She did not have to. She could feel the man in the black coat on the boardwalk in front of the depot watching her go. She could feel him deciding what to do next. They rode in silence for the first mile. Clara held the reins the way her father had taught her 30 years ago in a Philadelphia paddock where a girl in a riding habit had been a small and serious creature with nothing yet to be afraid of. Miss Montgomery. Yes. I lied to you back there. She turned her head sharply. About what? About one thing. Mr. Thornton. Jack. Jack, about what? I told you I just couldn't ride past a woman in distress. That was true, ma'am, but it was not the whole of it. Her stomach went cold. I see. I got a hand laid up at the ranch with a smashed leg, crushed under a steer 2 weeks ago. The boys set the bone the best they knew how. Set it wrong. There is a doctor in Laramie, and there is a doctor in Fort Russell. And ma'am, I cannot get to either one before that boy loses the leg or worse. He is 19 years old. He came up from Texas with his brother last spring, and his brother is buried on my land already, and his mother does not yet know. How long has the wound been infected? How did you know it was infected? Because if it weren't, you wouldn't be telling me this. He almost smiled. 3 days, maybe 4. The fever climbed yesterday. He has stopped knowing his own name. Has he kept water down? Some. Has the leg drained? Yes, ma'am. What color? Yellow, then green this morning. She closed her eyes for a single breath. Mr. Thornton? Jack. Jack? Clara opened her eyes and her voice came out level and cold and utterly unlike the voice of a woman who had been weeping on a trunk an hour ago. Ride faster. We are losing him. Ma'am, the country is rough, and the mare... Faster, Jack, or there will be nothing for me to do when we arrive but close his eyes. He kicked his horse into a long trot. The dun followed, the sorrel under her followed, and Cheyenne fell away behind them into a column of dust no bigger than a man's hand on the horizon. Clara Montgomery, who an hour ago had been the most refused woman in Wyoming territory, sat straight in the saddle of a stranger's horse and rode east into open country, with her past behind her and a dying boy ahead of her, and $3.40 in a purse against her ribs. And somewhere in that column of dust at her back, a man in a black wool coat too heavy for July was already saddling a horse of his own. The horses were lathered before the second mile. Jack glanced over at her once, then twice, and on the third time he said it. Miss Montgomery, you ever rode this hard before? Once. That a fact. During the war, a boy on the surgical ward broke loose and ran for the river. I rode him down. You bring him back. I brought him back. He lived. He lived 11 days. Jack did not say anything to that, and Clara was glad. She did not want to be soothed. She wanted to ride. The country pitched up and rolled and pitched again. A jackrabbit broke from a sage, and the dun shied, and Clara held her seat without thinking. Jack noticed. He did not comment. There was a kind of man, she thought, who watched a woman work and did not announce that he was watching, and she had not been certain that kind of man existed west of the Alleghenies. Jack? Ma'am? Tell me what I am riding into. His name is Wyatt Hollis. He is 19. Came up from Goliad with his brother Caleb last spring. Caleb died in March of a horse falling on him. I buried him myself. Wyatt has not been the same boy since. That is grief, Jack. That is not infection. I know it ain't infection. But ma'am, he ain't fought this the way another boy might. He has stopped wanting to live. I would not put it that hard. I would. A boy who has stopped wanting to live will let a fever take him in half the time. Tell me what you have at the ranch. Spirits. Whiskey. A jug of it. Carbolic. What is carbolic? Acid. Brown. Smells like a tar pit. No, ma'am. Clean linen. Clean enough. Boiling water. That I can promise you. A sharp knife. He was quiet a beat. How sharp, ma'am? Sharp enough to take a leg, Jack. The mare under her surged forward without him touching the reins. He had spurred his own horse without realizing it. Miss Montgomery, you are going to take Wyatt's leg. I am going to look at Wyatt's leg. And if the leg is what I think it is, then yes, Jack, I am going to take it. And he is going to live. Or he is not going to live. But he is not going to die, because we stood on ceremony. Ma'am, he is 19 years old. I know how old he is. I have already heard you say it twice. A one-legged boy on the frontier. Is a boy. A no-legged boy in a coffin is a boy his mother has to bury alone in Texas. Ride faster, Jack. He rode faster. She had not meant to take command of him. It had simply happened the way it had always happened in a surgical theater, the way her voice had simply lifted itself out of her ribs and gone where it needed to go. She had forgotten she still had that voice. She had buried that voice in Philadelphia under a mountain of refusals. It had not died. It had only been waiting. The Bar T showed itself a long way off a low huddle of buildings against a low rise of land, with smoke standing straight up from the cookhouse chimney, because there was no wind yet at sundown. 2 men were on the porch of the main house. A third was crossing the yard with a bucket. They all stopped when they saw the rider with Jack. That's Pike, Jack said. Foreman. The big one is Reuben. The one with the bucket is Tom. Tom is the one who set the leg wrong. He don't know it yet. Then he does not need to know it tonight. Ma'am? Tonight is for the boy Jack. Tomorrow is for the man who hurt him. Jack looked at her sideways and did not answer. They reined in at the porch and Pike came down the steps 2 at a time. Pike was a long man with a gray mustache and the sort of eyes that did not bother to be polite about a stranger. Boss, who is the lady? Lady is a nurse from Philadelphia. She is going to look at Wyatt. Wyatt is in a bad way, boss. That is why she is here, Pike. Boss, Wyatt is in a bad way. Jack swung down. Pike, I heard you. Take the horses. Boss, I am telling you the boy has gone gray. Clara was already on the ground. She had not waited for a hand. She stepped past Pike like a woman walking through a curtain. Where? Ma'am? Where is he? Which door? Bunkhouse, around back. Ma'am, you don't want to... She was already moving. Jack came after her at a long stride. Pike came after Jack, still talking. Tom dropped the bucket where he stood, and the water ran out across the boards of the porch and nobody noticed. The bunkhouse smelled before she opened the door. A nurse knew that smell. A nurse smelled it once on a ward in 1864 and smelled it for the rest of her life. It was the smell of a body that had begun somewhere under the skin to give up on itself. She opened the door anyway. Light, she said. Now. Ma'am, there is a lamp. 2 lamps. 3. All of them. Now. Ma'am, the boy is sleeping. The boy is not sleeping. The boy is unconscious. There is a difference, and we have about an hour before the difference stops mattering. Lamps. Pike looked at Jack. Jack jerked his chin once. Pike went. Clara crossed to the cot and knelt. She did not look at the leg yet. She looked at the boy's face. She put 2 fingers under his jaw. She counted. She put the back of her hand against his forehead. She lifted his eyelid with a thumb. Wyatt, she said. Wyatt Hollis, can you hear me? The boy's lips moved. What did he say? Jack bent. He is asking for his brother, ma'am. Tell him his brother is coming. Tell him his brother said to hold on. Ma'am, that is a... I know what it is, Jack. Tell him. Jack told him. The boy's mouth softened. His eyelids fluttered. Clara had her hand on the pulse at his throat, and she felt it skip and catch and skip again. Lamps, she snapped. Where are my lamps? Pike was back with 2, and Tom behind him with a 3rd, and the room came up out of the dimness, and Clara saw the leg. She did not flinch. She had trained herself not to flinch in the 2nd year of the war, and she had never lost the training. But Pike was a hard old man, and Pike said, "Sweet Jesus," very quietly, the way a man said it in a church. Get out, Clara said. Ma'am, all of you, out, except Jack, and 1 man with strong hands who will not faint. That'd be me, Pike said. You sure? Ma'am, I held a man's guts in for him at Cold Harbor, while a surgeon dug a ball out of his liver. I will not faint. Cold Harbor, which side? The losing one, ma'am. Then we understand each other. Stay. Tom out, and put water on. As much as you have. Boil it. All of it. Ma'am, the kettle. Every kettle. Every pot. Every basin. If it holds water, fill it and put it on the stove. Go. Tom went. Reuben was in the doorway, hat in his hands, and he had not been told to stay or to go, and he was doing neither. Reuben. Ma'am. You ride? Yes, ma'am. How fast can you make Laramie? 6 hours hard. Maybe 5 if I kill the horse. Don't kill the horse. 5.5. Find a doctor. His name will not matter. Tell him you have a boy with a femoral wound, 4 days septic, and a nurse already cutting. Tell him to ride. Tell him if he will not ride, you will find another doctor, and you will tell every man in Laramie which one would not come. Go. Ma'am. Go, Reuben. He went. Jack was looking at her. She felt his eyes without turning her head. Jack, Ma'am. You said you had a knife. I have several. The sharpest one. In the kitchen. Bring it. Bring the whetstone. Bring the whiskey. Bring every clean rag in this house. Bring me a needle. Bring me thread. Strong thread. Saddle thread will do. Yes, ma'am. Jack. He had been turning. He turned back. Yes, ma'am. I have not done this before. Not alone. Not without a surgeon at my elbow. I want you to know that. He did not answer for a moment. Then he said, Ma'am, there are 40 miles of empty country between this bunkhouse and the closest man who has done it before. You are what we have, and you came here in a strange man's saddle on a day when you ought to have been weeping in a depot. So I will say this once, Miss Montgomery. You are not alone in this room. You are not alone. He said it without looking at her, and then he was gone, and Clara found that her hands were perfectly steady, which was a thing she had not expected, and her eyes were wet, which was a thing she had not expected either. Pike cleared his throat very quietly behind her. Ma'am, I will say it now while we got a minute. The boys ain't going to like a woman cutting on Wyatt. I know. Some of them is going to talk. Let them talk. Some of them is going to do worse than talk if Wyatt don't make it. Pike. Ma'am. If Wyatt does not make it, I will not need any of them to do worse than talk, because I will already have done worse than talk to myself. Now bring me that lamp closer. And put your hand here. Hold this so. Tighter. Tighter, Pike. Yes. There. Outside, the sun had begun to drop, and the light coming in the one window of the bunkhouse went the color of old copper. Tom came in with a kettle and went out for another. A second man came with rags. A third came with a strap of leather and laid it on the foot of the cot without being asked, because every man on a western ranch knew what a leather strap was for when a knife was being sharpened in the kitchen. Jack came back with the knife. He did not hand it to her. He laid it on a clean square of linen on the stool at her elbow, and he set the whetstone beside it, and the whiskey beside that, and a small tin of needles, and a coil of saddle thread, and a pair of pincers from the smith's bench, and the heaviest pair of shears from the kitchen. Ma'am, I have rang the iron triangle outside. Every hand on this place is in the yard now. Why? Because they need to be told. And I would rather tell them once than have them come at this door one at a time while you are working. Tell them what they need to be told, Jack. I will. He went to the door. He did not raise his voice. She heard him through the wood anyway, because the men in the yard were silent, and Jack Thornton did not have to raise his voice to be heard by men he had been feeding for 10 years. Boys, the lady inside is a nurse. She is going to try and save Wyatt's leg. If she cannot save the leg, she is going to save the boy. She has my say-so. She has my word. Any man who does not like it can draw his pay tonight and ride out. Any man who stays under this roof will speak to her with his hat in his hand. That is all. Get back to your suppers. Pray for the boy if you are the praying kind. There was no answer from the yard. There was the soft scrape of boots turning. There was the iron triangle which somebody had not let go of ringing once more very softly as it was set down. Jack came back inside. Pike, the strap. Got it, boss. Wyatt! Clara bent close to the boy's ear. Wyatt Hollis. I am Clara. I am a nurse, and I am going to help you. I am going to put a strap between your teeth. You are going to bite down on it. You are going to think about your brother. You are going to think about Texas. You are going to think about your mother's kitchen. You are going to stay with us. Wyatt, do you hear me? You are going to stay. The boy's mouth opened a little. Pike fed the strap in. Clara picked up the knife. She tested the edge against the back of her thumbnail. It did not slide. It bit. She put the knife in the basin of whiskey. She put her hands in the basin of whiskey after it. She drew them out. They were shaking now a little. The smallest tremor at the fingertips, which was good, which was the body knowing what it was about to do. Jack. Ma'am, I want you at his shoulders. Pike at his hips. When I begin, he is going to come up off the cot. He is going to scream. You will not let him move. You will not let him buck. You will not let go. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Pike. Ma'am. You will not let go. No, ma'am. On 3. Ma'am. 1. A horse came into the yard outside. Not Reuben's horse going. A different horse. A horse coming in. Clara heard it. Pike heard it. Pike's eyes flicked to the window. Boss, I hear it? Boss, that is a town horse. That is a livery horse out of Cheyenne. I know what it is, Pike. Boss? Pike. Hold the boy. Outside, very faintly, a man's voice rose, carrying over the dust of the yard, the way certain voices carry, the way a thin voice with a Philadelphia consonant in it carries on a Wyoming evening when the wind has died. Hello, the house. I am looking for a Miss Clara Montgomery. I have business with her, concerning a matter back east. Jack's hands tightened at the boy's shoulders. He did not look up. Ma'am. Yes. You said 3. I did. Ma'am, that fellow is at the front porch. I know. You want me to go out there? No. Ma'am. Jack. Clara set the tip of the knife above the gray skin of the leg, and she breathed out, and she did not look up. Jack, if that man comes through that door before I am done in here, I do not care what you do to him. I do not care if you put him on a horse or in a hole. I do not care. Do you understand me? I am cutting on this boy. I am not stopping. I am not turning around. He came 2,000 miles to take this from me. He does not get this. He does not get this room. He does not get this boy. Hold the shoulders. Yes, ma'am. Pike, hold the hips. Ma'am. 3. She set the knife. The boy came up off of the cot like a rope had pulled him. He bit down on the strap. He did not scream the way a man screamed in a saloon. He screamed the way a boy screamed for his mother, 2 long syllables broken off in the middle. Pike's arms were across his hips like iron. Jack's shoulder was across his chest. Clara did not look at the boy's face. She did not look at her own hands. She looked at the wound, and at the wound only, and her hands did what 12 years of training in a city she would never see again had taught them how to do. Outside, the voice came again closer. It was on the porch now. Hello, the house. I have ridden a very long way, and I am not in a generous mood. I would like to speak with Miss Montgomery. I would like to speak with her tonight. Tom came pelting in from the kitchen, white around the mouth. Boss? Boss, there is a fellow on the porch in a black coat, and he says, Tom. Boss. Tom, pick up that other lamp. Bring it here. Hold it where the lady tells you. Do not look at the leg. Look at her face. You hear me, son? Look at her face. Tom looked at her face. Clara did not look up. Lower, she said. An inch lower. There. Hold it there. Do not move. Tom did not move. The bootsteps came up onto the porch. They paused at the front door of the main house. They started around the side toward the bunkhouse because the man in the black coat was not a fool, and the man in the black coat had heard the boy scream. The bootsteps stopped halfway across the yard. A new voice spoke. A foreman's voice. A young one. Mister? Out of my way, son. Mister, I am going to need you to stop walking. I am here on a legal matter. I am here on behalf of the Whitfield family of Philadelphia. I have a writ. I have a warrant. I have... Mister, I do not care what you have. Mr. Thornton said no man not on this payroll was to come past this hitching post tonight. You ain't on this payroll. Boy, step aside. Mister, I am 16 years old and I have got a Winchester rifle leaning on this post, and I have been told to use it if I have to. I do not want to have to. I have not yet shot a man. I would rather not start with a lawyer. But I will, mister. I will start with a lawyer tonight. There was a silence. Then the bootsteps turned. Then the bootsteps walked slow and unhurried back toward the hitching post, and a horse blew, and a saddle creaked, and a voice came one last time across the yard, pitched to carry through the wood of a bunkhouse wall to a woman with a knife in her hand. Miss Montgomery, I will be in Cheyenne. I will be there tomorrow. I will be there the day after. I will be there until you come out of this hole and answer for what you did to my brother. Sleep on that, miss. Sleep on it tonight. The horse moved off. Clara's hand did not stop moving. Pike's eyes had come up to her face. So had Jack's. So had Tom's, which still held the lamp exactly where she had told him to hold it. "His brother," Jack said quietly. "Not now, Jack." "Ma'am?" He said brother. "Not now." "Ma'am, you told me a patient died. You told me a patient." "Jack?" "Ma'am." "Jack, the boy is bleeding. Hold his shoulders. We can be afraid of Philadelphia tomorrow. Tonight, we are going to save Wyatt Hollis. Hold his shoulders, Jack. Hold them." Jack held them, and in a bunkhouse 40 miles east of a town that had shut its doors on her by sundown. Clara Montgomery, who had been told all her life that she was not strong enough, and not respectable enough, and not woman enough, set her teeth, and bent her back, and went to work on a boy she had never met, while the man who had crossed 2,000 miles to destroy her rode away into the dark with the news that she had not after all been alone tonight. The knife went in, and Wyatt Hollis came up off the cot with a strength a dying boy ought not to have had. "Hold him." "I got him, ma'am." "Pike harder." "I got him." The blood came faster than she expected. It always did. A nurse forgot between one patient and the next exactly how fast a young man could bleed. "Tom." "Ma'am." "Tom, do not look at the leg." "Ma'am, I ain't looking." "Tom, look at me." Tom looked at her. "Hold the lamp where I tell you. If I say lower, you go lower. If I say higher, you go higher. If I say nothing, you do not move. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good boy." She found the artery with 2 fingers. She had been afraid she would not. She had been afraid that 12 years would have softened the knowledge in her hands that a Philadelphia surgical ward and a Wyoming bunkhouse were too far apart to remember each other. They were not. The artery was where it had always been. The pulse in it was thin and fast, and it was telling her she had less time than she had hoped. "Pike." "Ma'am?" "I cannot save the leg." Pike did not answer. "Pike, did you hear me?" "I heard you, ma'am." "He will lose the leg below the knee. If he loses it above, he will not ride again. If he loses it below, he will. I am taking it below. I need the saw." "Boss," Pike said, "get her the saw, Tom." "Where is it, boss?" "Smith's bench. Bone saw. He keeps it wrapped in oilcloth on the second shelf. Run, son." Tom set the lamp on the stool. He ran. He came back. The saw was in his hand, and his face was the color of old milk. "Lamp, Tom." "Ma'am?" "Pick the lamp up. You have not finished your work." Tom picked the lamp up. His hand shook. The light shook with it. "Hold steady, Tom." "Ma'am, I cannot." "You can. Look at me, Tom. Not at the leg. At me. Steady the hand." The hand steadied. She put the saw in the basin. She drew it out. She set the teeth. "Wyatt Hollis." The boy's eyes were closed. His mouth was around the leather strap. His chest was going up and down too quickly. "Wyatt, you are going to feel this. You are going to feel it, and you are going to think you cannot bear it. You are going to bear it. You are going to bear it because your brother is waiting on the other side of it, and I will not let you go to him before your time. Do you hear me, Wyatt Hollis? You are going to bear it." Jack's eyes came up to her face for half a second. She did not see it. She was watching the saw. "Pike, hold." "I got him, ma'am." "Jack, hold." "I got him." She set her teeth and she went. The first stroke was the worst stroke. It always had been. Wyatt screamed once around the leather. And then he did not scream anymore, because his body had taken him out of the room, the way a body would do for a boy at 19. The way it had done for a boy on a Philadelphia table in 1864, when she had been 22, and her hands had been a stranger's hands. She did not weep. She had wept once in 1864 on a table, and an old surgeon named Whitaker had taken her by the elbow and walked her out into the corridor and said, "Miss Montgomery, you will not weep on a patient. You will weep at home. You will weep in your sleep. You will weep on a Sunday in a pew where God can see you. You will not weep on a patient. A patient cannot afford your tears." She had not wept on a patient since. She did not weep now. The saw went through. Pincers. Pike put them into her hand. Thread. Pike put it into her hand. Lamp closer, Tom. Closer. There. Her hands moved. The training in them moved. 12 years of a city she would never see again moved through her fingers and into a boy who had come up from Goliad to look for a brother who was already in the ground. She tied. She cut. She tied again. She did not look up. Whiskey. Ma'am, this is the last of it. All of it, Pike. Every drop. He poured. Wyatt did not react. Wyatt had gone somewhere a body goes when it has had enough. Clara had been afraid of that place all her working life. She had also learned over a long time that a body sometimes came back from it. Linen. Pike handed her linen. More. He handed her more. She wrapped. She tied. She tied again. She put the back of her hand against the boy's forehead, and she put 2 fingers against his throat, and she counted, and Pike watched her count, and Jack watched her count, and Tom held the lamp exactly where she had told him to hold it, because Tom was 16 years old, and Tom had been told to look at her face, and Tom was looking at her face. She counted to 60. Then she sat back on her heels. He is alive. Pike let out a breath like a man who had been holding it for 20 minutes. He is alive, Pike. The fever is going to climb tonight. It is going to climb tomorrow. We have not won. We have only bought him a chance. Do you hear me? We have not won. Yes, ma'am. He is going to want water, small sips, a spoon at a time, not a cup. He is going to vomit if you give him a cup. If he vomits, he tears the sutures. If he tears the sutures, we have done this for nothing. Spoon. Slow. All night. Yes, ma'am. Whoever sits with him does not leave him. Not for the privy. Not for supper. Not for prayer. They sit. They put the spoon to his mouth. They speak to him. They use his name. They use his brother's name. They say Caleb. They say it often. The boy will hear his brother's name through fever. Do you understand me, Pike? I understand you, ma'am. I will sit the first watch. Ma'am, you are? I will sit the first watch, Pike. Ma'am? Pike, I will sit the first watch. He did not argue with her again. Jack had not moved. His hand was still on the boy's shoulder where it had been, and his face was doing something she had not seen it do before, a slow gathering at the jaw. Jack. Ma'am. Walk outside with me. 2 minutes. I want air. Yes, ma'am. Pike, spoon, water. Begin. She stood. Her knees had a tremor in them now that she would not have permitted them an hour ago, and she let them have it because the work was done and the body was allowed. Outside, the dark had come down all the way. The yard had a row of men standing along the fence rail. They did not move when she came out. They did not say anything. Pike's young foreman, the 16-year-old with the rifle, was still at the hitching post. The rifle was still leaning on it. Boys, Jack said quietly. Boss. He is alive. A sound went through the row of men. It was not a cheer. It was the sound a tired man made when a thing he had been afraid of did not happen. Get to your beds. Pike and the lady got him. Get to your beds. I will tell you in the morning. The men moved, slow, one at a time. Jack walked her 10 steps out into the yard, away from the bunkhouse, away from the porch, until he could speak without being overheard. Ma'am? Jack. You said patient. I know what I said. You said a patient died. I know what I said, Jack. That fellow in the black coat said brother. He did. Ma'am. His name was Henry Beaumont. He was a patient. He was also the second son of the Beaumont family of Rittenhouse Square. He came in for a small surgery in the spring of 1881. He did not come out of it. The surgery itself went well. The infection that took him afterward did not have to take him. It took him because he refused to obey his nurse. Refused how, ma'am? He climbed out of his bed 3 days after a clean surgery to corner me in a supply closet. Jack went very still. He tore the wound open against a shelf. He bled into the front of my apron. He told me he would say I had encouraged him. I told him I would say what had truly happened. He said his father was a Beaumont, and mine was a country physician, and which of us did I think a board of trustees was going to believe? And then his fever came up, and then he died. And then his brother Silas, who is the man who came to your porch tonight, stood in front of the board with my torn apron in his hand, and asked them to look at the blood on it. And asked them whose blood it was. And asked them how a nurse came to have a dying patient's blood across the bodice of her uniform. If she had not been somewhere, she ought not to have been doing something she ought not to have been doing with a man who could no longer speak for himself. Ma'am, I was dismissed without a hearing. I was told never to seek nursing work in the state of Pennsylvania again. I answered an advertisement. I came west. The advertisement was Silas Beaumont's. He paid the man Whitfield $200 to write me letters. He paid him another $200 to abandon me on a Cheyenne platform. He has been a step ahead of me for 2,000 miles, Jack. He is here to ruin me. He is here to make sure that no town and no parish and no hospital between Philadelphia and the Pacific will take me in. He is here because his brother died, and somebody has to be made to pay for it, and I am the only somebody he can reach. Jack did not speak for a long time. That is the whole of it, ma'am. That is the whole of it. You did not lie to me. I did not tell you all of it, Jack. That is its own kind of lying. Ma'am. What? You did not lie to me. She looked at him. She found that she was holding her own elbows. She found that her hands were still wet at the cuffs and she had not realized it. Jack, I am going to need you to put me somewhere I can change my dress. Ma'am, the main house. The room at the back. It was my mother's. I have not used it. Thank you. Ma'am. What? He will come back. I know he will. He will not come alone next time. I know that too. Ma'am. Jack, please, I am very tired. I am only going to say this once tonight, ma'am, and then I will not say it again until I am asked. You have a place here for as long as you want one, not as a nurse, not as a hand, as a person. You do not owe me a story. You do not owe me a debt. You came onto my land in a saddle I lent you, and you saved a boy I had given up on, and that is between you and Wyatt Hollis and God. Whatever else you are running from, you are not running from it tonight. You are sitting up with that boy tonight, and I am sitting up with you. She did not answer. She could not. Pike's head came around the bunkhouse corner. Ma'am? She wiped her face with the back of her wrist before she turned. Pike. He is awake, ma'am. He is asking for you. Asking for me. He is asking for the lady. He says the lady, where is the lady? Said it 3 times before I came to fetch you. She walked back. Jack walked behind her. Wyatt Hollis was not awake the way a healthy boy was awake. He was awake the way a boy was awake who had been somewhere and come halfway back. His eyes were open. They were not focused. His mouth was working around the leather strap which Pike had taken out, and his lips were cracked. Wyatt. Lady. I am here, Wyatt. Lady. Where is my brother? Clara felt Jack's hand take hold of the back of her arm above the elbow, just for a second, and let go. Wyatt, your brother is in Texas. My brother said he was coming. He did say that, Wyatt. He sent me ahead. The boy's eyes closed. Lady. Yes. Lady, my leg is hurting. I know it is. Lady, did you take it? She did not lie. Yes, Wyatt. I took it below the knee. You are going to live. You are going to ride a horse again. You are going to walk into your mother's kitchen on a stick that you whittled yourself. You are not going to die in a bunkhouse in Wyoming. Do you hear me, Wyatt Hollis? You are going to live. Lady? Yes. Stay. I am staying. Lady, stay till morning. I am staying till morning, Wyatt. Sleep now. A spoon of water first. Open your mouth. He opened his mouth. Pike put the spoon in. The boy swallowed. It was the smallest victory a body could win. It was enough. Clara sat down on the floor beside the cot. She did not sit on the stool. The stool was for the lamp. She sat on the floor with her back against the wall and her wrists across her knees. Jack went out and came back with a mug of black coffee and put it into her hand without speaking. She drank half of it. She set it down. She did not remember setting it down. She remembered only the boy's hand, which had come out from under the blanket at some point, and which had wrapped itself around two of her fingers, and which was holding onto them the way a child held onto a mother in the dark. Pike sat down across from her. The lamp burned. The boy breathed. Outside, somewhere far across the yard, a man was singing very low to a horse, the way a man sang at midnight on a frontier ranch, half a hymn and half a lullaby. Clara's chin came down on her chest twice, and she pulled it up twice, and the third time she did not pull it up, and Pike took the coffee out of her hand without waking her. And Jack came in from the porch with a folded blanket and put it over her shoulders and put his hand against the back of her neck. For 1 second, the lightest touch, the way a man steadied a horse he meant to keep, and then took the hand away. She did not know he had done it. She slept. She slept for 1 hour and 17 minutes. She was woken by hooves, 2 horses coming hard into the yard. Pike's head came up. So did Jack's. Pike's hand went to the rifle that had been leaning against the wall by the door. "Boss?" "I see them." "Boss, that is Reuben." "I see him, Pike. Who is the other man?" The second horse came into the yard, and a man swung off it before it had stopped, and Reuben was already shouting from the saddle. And Reuben was not shouting good news. "Boss, boss, you gotta come out. Boss, I brung the doctor, but boss..." Jack was already at the door. "Boss, the doctor says we got a problem. Boss, that fellow in the black coat. The one that come and went tonight. He didn't go back to Cheyenne, boss. He rode on to Laramie. He got there before me. He has gone to the territorial marshal. He has sworn out a warrant. Boss, he is coming back here in the morning with the law. He is coming to take the lady. He is saying she killed his brother. He is saying she will hang for it, boss. He has got the marshal believing it. He has got papers on her, boss. Real papers. With a judge's mark." Pike's eyes came down to Clara, who was on her feet now. The blanket falling away from her shoulders, the boy's hand still wrapped around her 2 fingers. The doctor stepped into the lamplight. He was a small man with a tired face and a black bag. "Ma'am," he said, "I am Dr. Avery, out of Laramie. Reuben here told me what you done tonight." "Doctor?" "Ma'am, I rode all the way out here to assist you. I am not going to assist you. I am going to shake your hand. I have not seen better field surgery in 20 years. The boy is going to live because you cut where you cut and stopped where you stopped, and I want it on the record that I said so." "Thank you, doctor." "Ma'am, I also rode all the way out here to tell you something else. The Marshal of Laramie is a good man. The Marshal of Laramie is also bound by a writ. There is a writ in his hand tonight with your name on it. He will not refuse to serve it. He cannot. He will be here at sunup. And ma'am, the man who brought him that writ is sitting in the front room of the Laramie Hotel right now, drinking a glass of brandy and laughing about it." The boy's hand tightened on her fingers in his sleep. Clara did not look at the doctor. She did not look at Pike. She did not look at Reuben. She looked at Jack Thornton, who was standing in the doorway of the bunkhouse with his hat in his hand, and a rifle leaned against the doorframe behind him, and whose face had gone the still level kind of still that belonged to a man who was about to do a thing he had been putting off for a long time. "Jack." "Ma'am." "Jack, the marshal will be here at sunup." "I heard, ma'am." "Jack, they are going to take me." He set his hat on the hook by the door. He picked up the rifle. He turned it once in his hands, and he looked at her, and his voice was quiet and even and not afraid. "No, ma'am," he said. "They ain't." The rifle was steady in his hands, the way a tool was steady in the hands of a man who had used it. "Jack." "Ma'am." "Jack, you cannot stand against a marshal." "I ain't standing against a marshal." "That is exactly what you just said." "No, ma'am. What I said was, they ain't taking you. There is a difference. A marshal who hears the whole of a thing does not take a woman who has not done what she is accused of. And if he hears the whole of it and takes me anyway, then we will be having a different conversation, ma'am, and I will trouble you not to ask me about it now." Pike stepped in from the porch. He had not put the rifle down either. "Boss?" "Pike." "Boss, the boys are awake. Word's gone around. Tom told them. They is dressing in the bunkhouse now. How many? All of them. Boss, there are 11 men on this place tonight. 11 men is what is going to be standing in this yard when the sun comes up. Pike, send word to the bunkhouse that no man stands armed unless I tell him to. We are not bushwhacking a marshal of the territory. Boss. Pike, we are not bushwhacking a marshal of the territory. Yes, boss. Clara reached out and closed her hand around Jack's wrist before he turned away. He stopped. Jack. Ma'am. You do not know what you are doing for me. I know exactly what I'm doing for you, ma'am. You met me yesterday. I met you yesterday, and I have already watched you save a boy with your 2 hands and a borrowed knife and not weep at it. I have watched you stand a Philadelphia lawyer off a porch with a knife in your fist and not stop working. Ma'am, you do not need to know a person for years to know them. Some folks you know in an afternoon. I knew you in an afternoon. She let go of his wrist. Walk with me to the trunk, she said. I have something in it. The trunk had stood untouched in the back room of the main house since Jack had carried it in. Clara knelt beside it and did not open it for a long moment. Then she did. Jack. Ma'am. I have not opened this in 2 months. Ma'am. I told myself I had nothing in it that mattered. I told myself I had a dress and a Bible and a few things of my mother's. I told myself a great many things, Jack. I told them to myself because I could not bear to look at what I had truly packed. She reached under a folded petticoat. She drew out a leather satchel tied with a ribbon. The ribbon was black. She set it on the floor between them. What is it, ma'am? It is the rest of the story. She untied the ribbon. This, she said, and her voice was very level, is a letter from Henry Beaumont, the man who died. He wrote it to me 3 days after his surgery. He wrote it the night before he tore his own wound open against the shelves of a supply closet. It was delivered to my room by a hospital boy. I kept it. I do not know why I kept it. I think I knew even then that I would one day need it. Jack looked at it. Read it. I do not need to read it, ma'am. You need to read it. Because the marshal is going to read it, and I want a man in this room to have read it before he does. He read it. When he was done, his hand was tight on the page, and he handed it back to her without a word. This, she said, is a sworn statement from Dr. Augustus Whitaker. He is the senior surgeon I trained under. He wrote it the day I left Philadelphia. He gave it to me at the depot. He told me he was an old man and a tired one, and he had not been brave enough at the hearing, but that he would be brave enough in writing. He pressed his seal into the wax himself. He signed it before 2 witnesses. One of the witnesses is the chief of staff at the Pennsylvania hospital. The other is a justice of the Court of Common Pleas of Philadelphia County. Ma'am, you have had this in your trunk. I have had it in my trunk. Why have you not used it? Because I am tired, Jack. Because I have been told for 9 months that no piece of paper I produce will ever be heard. Because I came west to start a life where I would not have to defend myself anymore. Because I had hoped foolishly that a man named Whitfield in Wyoming would be enough of a fresh page that I could leave the old page closed. Ma'am, there is one more. She drew out a folded paper smaller than the other's edges, worn thin from being opened and read, and folded again. This, she said, is a letter from a woman named Margaret O'Neill. She was the night nurse on duty when Henry Beaumont died. She saw him drag me into the supply closet. She saw what he did. She was paid $80 by the Beaumont family to be elsewhere on the night of the hearing. She wrote me this letter from a boarding house in Pittsburgh 7 weeks ago. She wrote that she had spent the $80 and had not been able to sleep on any of it, and that she was coming west to find me, and that she would speak the truth in any town and any courtroom I needed her to speak it in. Where is she, ma'am? I do not know, Jack. I have not heard from her since. Ma'am? Yes. Get up off that floor. Why? Get up off that floor, ma'am. The marshal is going to be here in 2 hours. You are going to wash your face, and you are going to put on a clean dress, and you are going to stand in my yard with your trunk open, and your papers in your hand, and I am going to stand at your shoulder with 11 men behind me, and we are going to make a Philadelphia lawyer wish he had stayed in Philadelphia. She got up off the floor. She washed her face. She put on a clean dress. The dress had been her mother's, and it had not been worn since 1879, and it did not entirely fit her anymore, but it was the only clean one she had. When she came out of the back room, the sun was not yet up, and the yard was full of men. They were not armed. Pike had seen to that. They stood along the rail of the porch, and along the fence, and along the wall of the bunkhouse, and they did not speak when she walked out, and they did not stare. They took their hats off. One after another. 11 hats. Tom's came off last, because Tom had not been certain whether the rule applied to him at 16, and the man next to him elbowed him, and his came off too. "Ma'am," Pike said. "Pike, ma'am, the boys wanted me to tell you. They wanted me to say it out loud. They was talking it over half the night." "Pike, they do not have to." "Yes, ma'am, they do. Boys." The men did not say anything for a long moment. Then a voice from the back, a slow Texas voice she did not recognize, said, "We stand with the lady." Then another, "We stand with the lady." Then Tom very young and very fast. "We stand with the lady, ma'am, every one of us, ma'am, everyone." Clara's mouth opened. She did not have anything to say. Pike saw it and stepped in. "Ma'am, the boys will fetch chairs. You will be sitting when the marshal comes in." "Pike, I will not be sitting." "Ma'am, you have not slept." "I will not be sitting, Pike. I will be on my feet." "Yes, ma'am." Reuben came around the corner of the house at a run. "Boss, riders." "How many?" "3, boss, maybe 4, coming from the south." "That is the marshal." "Yes, boss. And the man in the black coat, and one other. And, boss, there is a 4th horse, but it ain't ridden tight. It is being led." "Led by who?" "Can't see yet, boss." Jack settled his hat. He looked at Clara once. "Ma'am?" "Yes." "Whatever I have to say, I will say it. Whatever you have to say, you will say it. The marshal will hear all of it. We will not raise a hand unless he forces it. Do you agree?" "I agree, Jack." "Then we are agreed." The horses came into the yard at a walk. Marshal Caldwell of the territory of Wyoming was a square gray man with a neat mustache and a star pinned not on his coat, but on his vest beneath the coat, the way a man wore a star when he did not need to advertise it. He swung down without help. He took his hat off to Clara before he took it off to anyone else, which Pike noticed and which Jack noticed. "Mr. Thornton?" "Marshal." "Ma'am." "Marshal." "Ma'am, I have a writ. I will read it." "I can read Marshal." "I will read it anyway, ma'am, because that is the law." He read it. The writ accused Clara Maria Montgomery of the city of Philadelphia in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, of the willful negligent killing of one Henry Wendell Beaumont in the spring of 1881, of the falsification of medical records, of the theft of personal property from the body of the deceased, and of flight from the lawful jurisdiction of the said Commonwealth. Silas Beaumont, who had not dismounted, smiled the same thin smile he had smiled in the depot in Cheyenne. Clara did not look at him. Marshal Caldwell. "Ma'am, I would like to answer the writ." "That is your right, ma'am." "I have papers. I will see them." She gave him the letter from Henry Beaumont first. He read it. His face did not change. He read it again. He folded it. He held it. She gave him the affidavit from Dr. Whitaker. He read it. He looked at the seal. He turned it over in his hand. He read the names of the witnesses. He looked up. "Ma'am, is this seal authentic?" "It is, Marshal." "Mr. Beaumont." Silas Beaumont had not stopped smiling, but his smile had gone a little thin at the edges. "Marshal." "Mr. Beaumont, are you familiar with the seal of the Pennsylvania Hospital?" "I am." "Is this the seal?" "It appears to be." "Mr. Beaumont, are you familiar with the signature of Dr. Augustus Whitaker?" "I cannot say that I am." "That is curious, Mr. Beaumont, because Dr. Whitaker performed the surgery on your brother. I would expect a man pursuing a writ in the matter of his brother's death to be familiar with the surgeon's signature." "I." "Marshal." A new voice. Dr. Avery, who had come out onto the porch with his black bag still in his hand, set the bag down. "Marshal Caldwell, a word, sir." "Doctor?" "Marshal, I have not had the pleasure of your acquaintance." "Likewise, doctor." "Marshal, my name is Avery. I practice in Laramie. I came out here last night to assist in a surgery already in progress. I wish to make a statement on the record." "On the record of what, doctor?" "On the record of any proceeding that this woman is dragged into by the man on that horse." Caldwell looked at Avery. Avery did not blink. "Speak, doctor." "Marshal, I have examined the boy in the bunkhouse. He is alive. He is alive because of work performed last night by Miss Montgomery, without anesthetic, without a trained assistant, without proper instruments, and without sleep. The work was as fine a piece of field surgery as I have seen since the war. I will swear to that in any court in the territory. That is the first thing. And the second thing, doctor." Avery turned. He looked at Silas Beaumont for a long second. "Marshal, 6 months ago in the month of January, I was called to the back room of a saloon in Laramie. There was a young woman there. She was 19 years old. She had been beaten with the buckle end of a belt. She did not speak English well. She was Mexican. Her arm was broken in 2 places. She had a piece of paper in her boot. The piece of paper said her name and the name of the man who had done it. I committed both names to memory, Marshal, because the law in Laramie is what it is, and I knew I would not be allowed to do anything with the names that night. The man's name on the paper was Silas Beaumont. The man on that horse, Marshal, is the man whose name I committed to memory in January." The yard went very still. "That is a lie," Silas Beaumont said. He said it too fast. "Marshal," Avery said calmly, "I have written a description of the man in my book. I keep the book in my office. I will produce it for the court. I will produce the girl if she will come, and I believe she will, because she has asked me twice in 6 months whether the man has come back through Laramie." "Marshal, Mr. Beaumont, be quiet." The marshal said it without looking at him. The marshal was looking at the affidavit again, and at the letter, and his hand had moved very slightly toward the gun at his belt. "Marshal," Silas said, his voice climbing now, "this is a campaign of slander. This woman has organized—" "Mr. Beaumont, I told you to be quiet. I am going to tell you twice. There will not be a third. You are letting a country doctor and a— Mr. Beaumont." A boy's voice came from the bunkhouse door. It was Wyatt Hollis. He was holding the door frame with both hands. He was on one leg. Pike was beside him holding him up. The boy's face was the color of bone, but his eyes were open and his mouth was moving, and he had heard enough through the wall to know what was happening in the yard. "Marshal, son. Marshal, the lady saved my life last night. I am hearing that, son. Marshal, the lady was crying when she did it." The marshal looked at Wyatt. He looked at Clara. "That so, ma'am?" "I do not remember crying, Marshal." "He says you was, ma'am." "Then I expect I was, Marshal. I do not always remember." "Son, anything else you want to say?" "Marshal, I want to say that man on the horse came up to this porch last night while she was cutting on me. Came up to drag her off. There was a 16-year-old boy with a rifle stopped him at the post. Marshal, what kind of a man rides up to a ranch where a nurse is trying to save a boy and tries to drag her off in the middle of the cutting? What kind of a man does that, Marshal?" Caldwell did not answer. "Marshal, that ain't the kind of man whose word a marshal of the territory ought to be carrying paper for." "Get him back inside, Pike," Jack said quietly. "He has said what he came to say." "Yes, boss." The boy was lowered back into the bunkhouse. The door did not close. Caldwell turned. He looked at Silas Beaumont for a long, slow moment. "Mr. Beaumont, step down off that horse. Marshal, Mr. Beaumont, step down off that horse, sir, or I will help you down." Silas Beaumont stepped down. He did not step down well. His hand went on the way down into the inside pocket of the black wool coat that had been too heavy for July, and it came out with a small Derringer pistol that had been made for a parlor and not for a ranch yard. And Pike saw it before Caldwell saw it, and Pike's voice was very quiet. "Mister." Silas froze. Mister, you put that little bitty thing on the ground. You put it on the ground real slow. There are 11 men in this yard, mister, and 7 of them is on your blind side, and every one of them has been waiting for an excuse since sunup. Silas Beaumont put the derringer on the ground. Caldwell picked it up. He weighed it in his palm. He looked at it like a man looking at something that had confirmed a thing he had already begun to suspect. Mr. Beaumont, you are going to ride with me to Laramie. You are going to ride ahead of me with your hands on your saddle horn. You are going to be a guest of the territory while I send a wire to Philadelphia and another to a saloon in my town, and you are going to learn, sir, that out here we do not always defer to a name. We will defer to a name where the name has earned it. Yours has not earned it with me today. Silas Beaumont did not say anything. He did not say anything because there was nothing left to say that would help him. Caldwell turned to Clara. Ma'am, I am going to keep these papers. I will keep them safe. I will send copies east. I will not be returning for you. I do not expect anyone else will either once the wire I am about to send goes out. I will be drafting a letter, ma'am, on the strength of what I have read in the affidavit and seen in the yard that will go to the Pennsylvania hospital and to the Philadelphia papers. I will say in it that I have met the woman in question and that I have found the writ to be without foundation. I am one marshal in one territory, ma'am, and that is not Philadelphia. But it is a beginning. Marshal. Ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, you saved a boy on a ranch in my territory. You did it for nothing. I am the one ought to be thanking you. He swung up. He turned his horse and Silas Beaumont's horse, and they rode out of the yard at a walk. And Silas did not look back, and Reuben sat on the fence rail with his thumbs in his belt and watched them go all the way to the rise. When the riders had dropped out of sight, Pike took his hat off and held it against his chest. Boys, Pike. That'll do. Get to your work. The men did not cheer. The men of a Wyoming ranch did not cheer that way. They put their hats on. They walked off in their separate directions toward their separate chores. Tom was the last to go, and he went sideways watching her, and Pike had to put a hand on the back of his neck and turn him forward. Jack stood beside her on the porch, and he did not speak for a long while. Jack. Ma'am. I do not know how to thank you. Then do not thank me. Jack. Ma'am. I am going to need a place to put my trunk. There is the back room. Permanently, Jack. There is the back room, ma'am. Permanently. She looked at him, then properly in the daylight for the first time since he had come down off a sorrel mare and offered to put her trunk on a pack horse, and what she saw in his face was not the face of a man who had taken in a stray. It was the face of a man who had found something he had not known he had been looking for, and who was a little afraid of how much he had already begun to want it. Jack. Ma'am, do not say anything yet. No, ma'am. Not today. No, ma'am. There is a boy in that bunkhouse who is going to need changing of dressings every 4 hours for the next 10 days. There is a fever that has not yet broken. There is a brother in Texas who has not yet been written to. There is a mother who has not yet been told her one remaining son is alive. There is work, Jack. There is a great deal of work. Yes, ma'am. After the work. Yes, ma'am. After the work, Jack, I will hear what you have to say. Yes, ma'am. She turned and she walked back toward the bunkhouse, and the breeze that had come up at last out of the south lifted the hem of her mother's dress and laid it down again, and Jack Thornton stood on the porch of the house his father had built and watched her walk and did not call after her and did not follow. He had been told to wait. He waited. 10 days went by the way 10 days go on a working ranch, which is to say they went fast and slow at once, and a woman who had been on her feet for most of them did not always remember which day it was when she sat down at supper. Wyatt Hollis sat up on the 11th day. He sat up by himself. He did it without telling anyone he was going to, and Pike found him sitting on the edge of the cot with both hands braced on the frame, and the stump wrapped clean, and his chin lifted like he was daring the room to comment on it. Boy. Pike. You ought not to be up. Pike, I've been laying down for 11 days. A man can lay down only so long before the ground starts to feel like a grave. That a fact. That a fact, Pike. Pike went and got Clara. She came in still wiping her hands on a towel from the kitchen, where she had been boiling bandages, and she stopped in the bunkhouse doorway and she put a hand against the frame. Wyatt Hollis. Ma'am? Who said you could sit up? Nobody, ma'am. Then how come you are sitting up? Ma'am, I figured I'd ask forgiveness instead of permission. Wyatt? Ma'am, lie back down. Lie? I will lie back down, ma'am, in a minute. I wanted you to see me sitting up first. I wanted you to see I'd done it. Her eyes filled, and she did not let them go further than filling, because a nurse did not weep on a patient, and she was still a nurse, and Wyatt Hollis was still a patient, even now, even sitting on the edge of a cot, with the morning sun on his face. I see you, Wyatt. Ma'am? I see you. That afternoon the first letter came. Reuben rode in from Cheyenne with a pouch of mail Mrs. Kettering had been holding under protest, and on top of the pouch was a long envelope with a Pennsylvania hospital seal on the back of it. Clara took it out into the yard before she opened it. She did not want to open it indoors. She did not want walls around her when she found out what was in it. Jack walked behind her 3 paces. He did not speak. He had learned in 11 days not to crowd her at a moment like this. She read it. She read it twice. Jack. Ma'am? They are reinstating me. Ma'am? They are issuing a formal apology. They are restoring my certificate. They are offering me my old position, with back wages. They are asking me to come home. Ma'am? There is a passage at the bottom. It is in Dr. Whitaker's hand. He says he will not retire if I will come back. He says he will stay another year if I will come back. He says... She stopped. He says he is sorry, Jack. Jack did not say anything for a long time. That is a fine thing, ma'am. It is. That is what you came west to wait for. It is. He put his hat back on his head. He did not look at her. Ma'am, I have got to go check on a fence in the south pasture. Jack. Ma'am. Jack, look at me. He looked at her. Jack. I have not said yes. Ma'am, you do not have to say anything. You have a letter in your hand from a hospital that put you out and is now begging you back. That is a hard thing to refuse. Jack. Ma'am. I have not said yes. No, ma'am. You have not said no either. He went to the south pasture. Clara stood in the yard for a long time with the letter in her hand, and Pike came out and saw her standing there and went back inside without speaking to her, because Pike was a man who knew when a moment was a private one. The second letter came 2 days later. It was from Margaret O'Neill. The ink was smudged. It had been written on a train. Miss Montgomery, it said. I am in Omaha. I will be in Cheyenne within the week. I have a sworn statement from the housekeeper of the Beaumont family who was paid $40 not to speak of what she saw on the night Henry died. I have her name and her address. I have her oath that she will testify. I am bringing her with me. I will not stop, miss, until what was done to you is undone. Clara folded the letter. She put it in her apron. She went looking for Jack. She found him at the corral with his back to her, and she did not call out, because she could see by the line of his shoulders that he had been working hard for 2 days, the way a man worked when he was trying not to think about a thing. Jack. He did not turn. Jack Thornton. He turned. Ma'am. Jack, I want you to come up to the house this evening, after supper. Sit on the porch with me. There is something I want to say to you. I do not want to say it in a yard with men around. Ma'am, will you come? Yes, ma'am, I will come. He came after supper. He came with his hat in his hand and his hair still wet at the temples from the wash basin. He sat on the second step of the porch with his elbows on his knees and his hands hanging loose, and he did not look at her, and he did not say anything because he had been told he would be told. Jack. Ma'am? I am not going back to Philadelphia. He did not move. For a long second, he did not move at all. Then he set his hat down on the step beside him very carefully, the way a man set down a cup he was afraid of spilling. Ma'am? Jack, I am not going back. Ma'am, You do not have to decide tonight. The letter said, Jack. Yes, ma'am. I have decided. Ma'am, a hospital like that. Jack Thornton, will you stop trying to talk me onto a train? He was quiet. I am sorry, ma'am. Do not be sorry. Listen, I have thought about this for 2 days and a part of 2 nights. I have thought about it while I changed the bandages on a boy's stump. I have thought about it while I shelled peas in your kitchen with a Mexican woman who came to cook 3 days ago and did not ask me my name. I have thought about it while I watched a 16-year-old boy named Tom learn to read out of my Bible because he asked me would I teach him. I have thought about every door that was shut in my face in Cheyenne and about the fact that 2 of those doors have already been opened back up, Jack. Mrs. Kettering sent word yesterday. She would like me to come and look at her sister, who has a lump in her breast. The dressmaker sent word this morning. She would like me to look at her boy, who has a cough that is not breaking. The bakery sent word at noon. The seamstress at 1. They are not asking the woman they shut the door on. They are asking the nurse on the bar T. Do you understand what I am telling you, Jack? Ma'am, I think I do. They will ask, and I will go. I will not make them beg. I have been begged into and out of doors my whole life, and I have learned that the begging is not the part that matters. The work is the part that matters. And the work is here, Jack. The work is in the bunkhouse. The work is in Cheyenne. The work is in the next ranch over and the ranch after that. There is no doctor between Laramie and Cheyenne, Jack. There is one nurse. There is me. They need me here more than the Pennsylvania hospital needs me there. I can be the 3rd best nurse on a Philadelphia ward. Jack, or I can be the only nurse in 50 miles of Wyoming. There is no choice in that. Do you see? I see, ma'am. That is the first thing I wanted to say. Yes, ma'am. There is a second thing. He looked at her then. He did not say anything. He waited. Jack. Ma'am. You said something to me on a porch. 11 days ago. You said you would not say it again until you were asked. Yes, ma'am. I said that. I am asking Jack. He closed his eyes for 1 second. He opened them. Ma'am, I do not have pretty words. I never had pretty words. Pretty words is for men in Philadelphia parlors. I am a rancher. A rancher has plain words, so I will give you plain ones. Plain is what I want, Jack. Ma'am, I am 38 years old. I have run this ranch by myself for 9 years. My mother died in the room behind you in 1881, and my father died in the same room 6 months after her. And there has not been a woman's voice under this roof since my mother went until you came. I did not know I had been listening for a woman's voice until I heard yours. I did not know the ranch had been quiet. I thought it had been peaceful. It was not peaceful, ma'am. It was empty. I learned the difference the night you walked in here with your sleeves rolled up and a knife in your hand. Jack? Let me finish, ma'am, or I will not get through it. All right. Ma'am, I am not a man who falls in love quick. I have not been in love but once, and that woman is buried in a churchyard in Cheyenne under a stone I paid for, and she has been there 14 years. I did not believe I would be in love again. I did not want to be. A man my age has built a life around not being. And then you walked out of a depot, ma'am, and you sat on a trunk in the dust, and you would not be helped, and I knew before I got you on a horse that I was going to have a problem, ma'am. I knew before we made the 2nd mile. I knew when you told me to ride faster because we were losing the boy. I knew it in my bones, ma'am. A man does not always know what is happening to him while it is happening, but I knew, and I have known every day since. Jack, ma'am, I am asking you to marry me. I am asking you not because the boy lived. Not because the marshal rode out. Not because you have nowhere else to go. You have somewhere else to go, ma'am. You have a letter in your apron pocket from a hospital that wants you back. You have a future in the East if you want it. I am asking you because I would like to spend the rest of mine looking across a table at you in the morning, and I would like to walk into a barn at evening and hear you laughing at something Pike said, and I would like to be the man who hangs your shawl on a hook by the door when you come in cold from a call. That is what I am asking. That is the whole of it. Plain as I can make it. She did not answer right away. She let the porch be quiet. She let his words sit in the quiet. Jack. Ma'am. Jack Thornton. Ma'am. I am going to say something to you, and I am going to say it once, and then I am not going to say it again tonight, because we both have work in the morning. Yes, ma'am. Jack. I came west to find a husband. I admit that. I answered an advertisement that turned out to be a trap, and I rode 2,000 miles into the worst summer of my life. And I have spent 11 days on a ranch I had never heard of, with a man I had never met. I do not believe in Providence, Jack. I have seen too many wards full of dying boys to believe in Providence. But I will tell you this. If Providence existed, it would look like a sorrel mare on a road outside Cheyenne, and it would have a man on it who took his hat off to a woman sitting on a trunk in the dust. So yes, Jack. Ma'am? Yes, Jack. I will marry you. He did not move for a long second. Then he stood. He stood the way a man stood who did not entirely trust his knees. He set his hat on the railing. He came up the steps. He stopped one step below her, because that was as close as he meant to come without permission, and he put both his hands lightly on the porch rail on either side of her, and he looked at her. Ma'am, may I kiss you? Jack Thornton. Ma'am? You may. He did. It was not the kiss of a young man. It was the kiss of a man who had decided on a thing and meant it. It was a quiet kiss, and a long one, and when it was over, he put his forehead against hers and breathed once. Clara. Yes, Jack. I have not said your given name out loud yet. No, you have not. I wanted to say it once before I went into bed. Say it. Clara. Again, Jack. Clara. There. You are allowed. The wedding was 3 weeks later. It was held in the yard. The Methodist preacher rode out from Cheyenne and refused to take a fee because Annie from the boardwalk had gone to him on Clara's behalf, and Annie had told him the whole of the story over a cup of his wife's coffee, and he had stood up halfway through and said, Madam, I will marry that woman myself if Mr. Thornton will permit it, and he had been good as his word. Margaret O'Neill stood at Clara's elbow in a dress borrowed from Mrs. Kettering, who had ridden out under her own power to ask forgiveness, and who had been forgiven because Clara was not a woman who carried a grudge into a new life. Wyatt Hollis stood up at Jack's side on a wooden leg Pike had carved him out of cottonwood. He stood the whole ceremony. Pike held him at the elbow when he started to lean. He did not lean for long. Tom held the Bible. Tom had been practicing his reading every night for 3 weeks, and Tom read the verse the preacher asked him to read without stumbling on a single word, and when he was done, his face was the color of a sunset, and Pike clapped him very softly on the back. Dr. Avery came up from Laramie. He brought his wife. His wife brought a cake. Reuben fired 3 shots into the air at the I do, which had not been planned, and which the preacher pretended not to notice. A telegram came in the middle of the supper that followed. Reuben rode out and got it and rode back. Jack opened it at the table. He read it once. He read it twice. He looked at Clara. He handed it to her. It was from Marshal Caldwell. Beaumont confessed to charges in Laramie jail 2 days ago. Full statement. Implicates self in death of brother through coercion of medical staff and bribery of witnesses. Will be transported east for trial. Pennsylvania Hospital has issued public retraction in Philadelphia papers. The matter is closed. Best wishes to you both. Caldwell. Clara folded the telegram. She put it under her plate. She did not weep at her own wedding supper. She had not wept at the worst moment of her life, and she would not weep at the best one either. She had earned the right to keep her tears for a Sunday in a pew when no one was looking, and that was where she meant to keep them. Jack watched her fold it. He did not speak. He took her hand under the table. He held it. That night, after the last guest had gone, after Pike had walked the perimeter one final time, and reported all quiet after Margaret had been put up in the back room, and Wyatt had been carried to his cot in the bunkhouse, over his protests after the Mexican cook had banked the stove, and the dogs had been tied, and the lamps had been turned low, Jack and Clara stood on the porch of the house his father had built, and they did not speak for a long time. Jack, ma'am, He said it out of habit. She did not correct him. She had already decided she did not mind. "Jack, there is something you need to know about this ranch. Ma'am, the first patient I take in this house is going to be a woman from Cheyenne. The second one is going to be a Mexican girl from Laramie that Dr. Avery is going to send me. The third is going to be a Sioux woman that Pike's friend Tall Elk is going to bring across the river one night when there is no moon. I have already decided. I did not ask you. I am telling you." "Yes, ma'am." "This house is going to have women in it, Jack. Sick women, hurt women, women that nobody else will take. Some of them are going to come in the night, and some of them are not going to be able to pay, and some of them are going to die in the back room and be buried on the ridge by the cottonwoods. That is going to be the life of this house." "Yes, ma'am." "You can speak now, Jack." "Ma'am, I do not have anything to say. I figured the night you walked in here that this was going to be the life of this house. I am not surprised. I am only glad to hear you say it out loud." "Jack." "Ma'am. I love you. I love you, Clara." She turned to him in the dark, and she put her hand against his face, and he closed his hand over hers and held it there. A long time ago, in a city she was no longer afraid of, a girl had been told that her worth came from a family name and a hospital appointment, and the approval of a board of trustees. A long time after that, in a town she was no longer afraid of, either a woman had been told that her worth came from the favor of a man in a black wool coat too heavy for July. Both the girl and the woman had believed it for a while. Both of them had been wrong. A woman's worth, Clara Montgomery had learned, was not a thing that was given to her by anyone. Not by a father, not by a board, not by a town, not by a husband. It was a thing she built with her own two hands in the dark on a cot over the body of a boy she had never met, and on a porch before God, and a Methodist preacher beside a man who had asked her name and waited to be told. A woman's worth was the work she chose, the words she kept, and the door she opened to the next woman who came after her. That was the whole of it. That was the truth she had ridden 2,000 miles to learn, and on a ranch east of Cheyenne in the summer of 1882. On the porch of a house she would walk in and out of every day for the rest of her life, Clara Thornton finally laid down the burden of being told who she was and stood up and was.